Thanks, Hamish, and thanks to the Newfoundland show here for inviting us to present. Before I get started, I'd like to thank my exploration team, Steve House, and my brother Mick Stairs, and Barry Sparks, along with various prospectors and so forth that's been at our camp for the last year. And we've done a lot of work in a short period of time, and so far had some pretty exciting results. Typical forward-looking statement. You can read this on our website disclaimer. We've got really huge potential here. I mean, Newfoundland in itself always kind of been a bit of an underdog. And now when you start seeing guys like Firefly with 59 million tons at 2% copper equivalent, I mean, this is world-class district stuff. And, you know, those mines in themselves are no different than Great Burnt. They started at 2 million tons of high-grade copper gold, and now here we are, you know, finding world-class deposits right in the same, same deposit, essentially, just expanding it. So I believe we have the exact same opportunity here. We're in a belt that's not had a lot of exploration, just spotty over the years. And we've now gained good access by good drill trails over 15 kilometers, and it makes a world of difference to have that better infrastructure. We've got an experienced team. We've had good success in the past. Benton's not a young company. We've been around since 2004, so managed to survive many crashes, and and we've had some great successes. The project itself, we got 100% or 70% interest in about a half of the project, 30% being paid for by Spruce Ridge Resources, and the remainder 100% owned by Benton. Over 25 kilometers of favorable stratigraphy, and literally only about half of that's been really explored. We have 6 known zones. And really the South Pond stuff is actually coming together as one zone now with all the drilling that we're doing. So it's becoming very, very serious, and I believe we're gonna be outlining a nice gold resource on top of our beautiful copper deposit that we have. There is an historical resource on Great Burnt, just over 1 million tons of around 3% copper. In the main resource of indicated and inferred. I should point out as well that since 2016, modern drilling using bigger core diameter, better recoveries, that all the drilling that's been done has hit far better results than previous explorers, including Asarco and those guys when they were in there in the 60s and 70s. And we believe that was due to using small diameter AQEX core. And once you get past 100 meters, the recoveries got bad. The directional of the drilling was poor, so they didn't really know where they were in the deposit. And with all the work that we've done, we've had structural geologists in looking at all the old core, all of our new core, ground mapping. We've done lots of trenching. And we're coming up with a new theory. And essentially, this is a cartoon map showing a Beshi-type deposit, which we believe that's the type of deposit we're in. The massive sulfide flows out onto the floor, and later you start getting metamorphism and folding and structure and compression, and that makes things very complicated. So these are basically generally cartoons that our structural geologists had made up for us, showing what's kind of happening with the deposit. And when we start applying this, and essentially the deposit has been balled up by folding into a very tight system, and it thickens the zones, and it's got a 30-degree plunge. Once we get onto that and start testing the model, it actually works really well. And in the main copper deposit itself, that theory holds true. Essentially, at the South Pond deposit, a lot of the drilling that was done, they hit limbs of the fold structures where they'd have 2 and 3 meters of 1-2 grams, you know, sometimes up to 10 grams. So we developed a model. This is also associated with semi-massive pyrrhotite, so it's highly magnetic. So we've done very, very detailed ground mag on top of the surface, so not rocket science, and essentially figured we'd drill a vertical hole to find the top of the folded mineralization, and then once we find the center of it, we drill a 45-degree or 50-degree hole across it. That don't work in all cases because of, you know, when you are in this folded terrain, and the dips sometimes dip away, so you only clip the side of it. So we've now gone back to just tight drilling on the mag anomalies, and that's holding together well. I'll show you a couple sections on that. But this model certainly holds true, and now we just got to figure out the plunges. We don't know if this South Pond Gold Zone is one continuous 3-kilometer semi-massive pyrrhotite zone, or if it's a whole series of lenses that are just plunging. So that time will tell once we get enough drilling into it. But to date, we've done 30 holes onto it in the last month and a half, and we've released about 10 of those so far, I think. This is the main Great Burnt deposit. Essentially, it's a very weak a very weak EM conductor. But in fact, when we actually have Alan King, geophysicist, interpret, he tells us actually it's a superconductor. And basically the time domain don't decay, and you don't see it until the late channels. So ultimately, we start applying that model. We've done a lot of downhole geophysics, and now we've expanded the deposit from 650 meters down plunge to 850 meters. And we're currently waiting for our geophysical team to arrive next week, and we're pulsing our 200 meter step out down to 1,000 meters. Once we get that geophysical survey done, we'll fill in the gaps. We had beautiful intercepts. You can see for yourself, 13 meters of 8% copper, 26 meters of 7. I mean, these are world-class intercepts. So this is a very, very high-grade, rich deposit. And sometimes you don't need a big deposit, even though this could be a big deposit. You know, the grades, and if you get a couple million tons of this stuff, it's very high value. Talking about the geophysics, when we picked the project up, you know, we basically stayed tight to it, used our model, chased it down to about 700 meters, and then we done some downhole pulse, and then basically the green plate is what we've expanded now down to 850 meters, and so that's all the stars that you see. We've expanded it down. You can see some really great intercepts. There was a lot of infill drilling that we done and most of our infill drilling actually was far better than any other numbers that were previously released or previously hit in this deposit. And then we got fairly aggressive in our last drill hole, 48. We'd done a 200 meter step out. We did hit the right stratigraphy, sheared chalcopyrite and stuff, but we believe now we got to pulse that hole, and then we'll fill in that gap that you see, which will bring the deposit to over 1,000 meters down plunge, so significantly expanding it. So we're anxiously awaiting to get that hole pulsed and get back drilling on this deposit. And then moving 10 kilometers to the north on the same horizon. So you see this big mag anomaly off to the west. Essentially that's an ultramafic complex. It's highly elevated nickel. There is conductors associated with it, untested. We've done soils on the southern part of it. We haven't completed all the soils yet. I'll show you some soil samples at the end, but we're getting up to 1,700 ppm nickel across big widths. And essentially, it's the same. We believe it's the same complexes off to the east, where North Atlantic Nickel is identifying a wearite. And they're right in the middle of a drill campaign right now, I believe. And you know, there's probably a good chance we'd have the same type of mineralization, but it's not something we're concentrated on. But it is there, and it do have potential for also copper, nickel, cobalt, massive sulfides. And we will test a couple of those conductors that are within the complex this winter. To the north of that is the South Pan horizon, over 3 kilometers of strike length. The very north part is copper gold rich, and as you move southward, the last 2 kilometers is gold rich. And we've released in the last few weeks some pretty spectacular numbers, 74 meters of 1.4 grams, 44 meters of 1.7 grams, et cetera, et cetera. So we've now drilled that for about 600 meters in strike length, or we've released assays for about 600 meters in strike length. We'll have more results coming, but we've drilled it for about 1.6 kilometers long. And then we drilled 7 holes up in the main South Pan copper gold resource that was calculated in the 1970s and not really been drilled since that time. So this is the detailed mag that my brother Mick did, 20-meter lines, 5-meter stations. So essentially the red that you see is identifying the massive pyrrhotite or semi-massive pyrrhotite. So that's how we're targeting this thing. We're staying tight to it. It's very shallow, open pitable type material, and wide intercepts. A little bit of figuring out to do, but and we'll drill a couple hundred holes in this in the next year or two. But I'm sure that we're going to develop a resource on it relatively quickly. To the north is the copper gold zone. Again, same thing. It needs a lot of drilling, and I think we'll be able to calculate a resource. Outside of that, of course, this zone is wide open to the south and to the northeast. We got about another 1.5 kilometers before we're off our property onto another mining company's project. So there's potential to the northeast as well. These are some of the old sections that we've used with Spruce Ridge Resources. They're the guys that we optioned the ground from and now earn 70%. Essentially, they would have a big wide intercept, like 51 meters of 1.8 grams or 1.79 grams, and then they drill underneath and only get a meter or two. Well, this was because of this highly folded stratigraphy, kind of balled up. So essentially, you know, we're staying really, really tight to this, and it's working very, very well for us with the detail mag. So, you know, we haven't figured out the plunges yet, but with detail drilling, we will get that together over the next year. These are some of the better intercepts that we've recently released in the last 2 weeks. You know, 1.3 grams over 18, 1.6 over 43, 1.43 over 74, et cetera, et cetera. These are nice intercepts. This is the type of grade that you see our neighbor, you know, about 60 kilometers to the northwest of us, Marathon Gold, 5 million ounces. Again, another world-class deposit that was discovered in modern times. I mean, that was an old resource drilled by Noranda in the 80s. Small, you know, 180,000 ounces, now 5 million ounces. So this is the potential that Newfoundland has, and we're on to one of those right now. You know, this is going to be a deposit that's going to have ounces and pounds of copper in the ground. So these are some of our sections and some of our ideas about drilling vertical holes and trying to get the height of the zones and then the widths of the zones. It's worked quite well. We are also hitting parallel zones, narrower widths and stuff, but an open pit scenario, you know, this stuff could become ore and could become important, so it's not waste rock. But for the most part, it is wide zones of low-grade gold, very shallow, and amenable to open pit mining in the future. So we're pretty excited about the opportunity that we got here. Again, this is our latest phase of drilling, where we decided to stay tight to the magnon anomalies and try to start figuring out some of the plunges. So we've released the hole number 12, which cut just over a gram over 27 meters, and we're awaiting for hole number 13 and 14, which will give us a full picture of the plunge, or certainly the height of the zone, and then we'll start stepping out and trying to figure out the plunge on these things. You got to remember, these drill holes, we've kind of spaced all of our drilling, you know, a few hundred meters apart. We do a cluster of them again to try to figure out the plunge, and moving along, just want to see that the gold system is still there. So, of course, with gold, you don't know, especially low-grade gold, until you get the assays. So, so we're anxiously awaiting the next 15, 16 holes. Just a little bit about the nickel. So the area in red is the area that we've soil sampled, and you can see the magnetic anomaly is closely associated with soil samples that grade anywhere from about 300 up to 1700 ppm nickel. Also associated with cobalt and copper in some instances, but mostly copper or nickel and cobalt. That mag anomaly, goes for multiple kilometers to the north, with conductors associated with the edges of it. Again, we will drill a couple holes in that intrusive this winter, just to see what we have there, and see if we can identify a wearite and/or hit magmatic massive sulfides in some of the conductors that are on the basal portion of the intrusion. But it's just very intriguing to us to date, what this thing is. So milestones for 2024, we've already completed 3 phases of drilling. We're currently on the 4th phase. We're on a pause right now for this show, actually, and waiting for some assays so we can get back drilling. We will drill probably till next May or so. Planning on drilling through all through the winter. And we also have a very significant lithium discovery on the south coast of Newfoundland. It's the only discovery on the island. We're partnered with Sokoman Minerals, and this project is fully financed by Piedmont Lithium, one of the bigger U.S. lithium companies, and it's currently being spun out into a new entity. So Benton shareholders and Sokoman shareholders will receive a dividend of shares in Benton Lithium. That will be announced very shortly. We actually just got conditional approval a couple days ago for all the listing applications and reports and et cetera that we put in. So we believe it's going to be it'll start trading sometime in January. And again, stay tuned for an update on that. But there is an opportunity to get a spin-out share from Benton on top of these great projects and assets that we have inside the company. So we have approximately 196 million shares out. We're well funded with about 2.5 million in cash. We have greater than $2 million in equities. We are the biggest shareholder of a company called Clean Air Metals, which has a huge platinum palladium resource in Ontario, and we own a 0.5% royalty on that deposit as well. So there's some future revenue possibilities with that asset. They are only located around 60 kilometers south of Canada's only palladium mine, North American Palladium, and the management of Clean Air was once the management of Lactazil Mines, who sold to Impala for $1 billion. So once they left that opportunity, they jumped on board with Clean Air Metals, and now developing a beautiful resource just south of the mine. So there's an opportunity to use their facility down the road. So there's a good opportunity for Benton to have good cash flow in the future. Thank you for listening, and that's it for Benton.